Hello and welcome. Let's start immediately. And we are on the platform Educate Africans. I just clicked on all courses so that we can open up biology is the subject we have for today. So I'm quickly gonna look for biology, and that is this. I'm gonna click on it so that we can start. Okay, so this is the biology, and we looked at excretion the last time. Today we're going to be looking at ecology, habitat, and population. Ecology, habitat, and population. Okay, and this actually has a quiz. So let me click on it. Okay. So this is what we have for today, and very importantly, I'm going to share out the links to the assignment that we're supposed to do. We all remember that we are supposed to do our assignments, and the assignment involves doing the past question of the last year. So let me quickly show you how you can get this assignment. Sorry, there's no light in my side. The NEPA just took light and trying to on the chain. Okay. So let me give you the assignment first before we can continue. Chika, how are you? Chika, how are you? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. I'm fine, thanks.
Okay. So let's continue. So I'm on the channel and I'm on videos. I'm gonna simply search for JAMB Biology 2018 past questions. Okay. Okay. So this is the one I'm looking for. So I'm gonna copy link address and I'm gonna paste it for you guys on the group chat. So by next week, we're going to start working on the 2020s. So we just finished by this week, 2018. So next week, we're going to work on 2020. Then after that, we'll start working on 2019. Then we'll be coming back small like that. So what happened? I know. What happened? Maybe the one. Okay, so I just pasted the videos. Okay, so I just had a network issue. So I just finished sharing the assignment, the past question for 2018 biology that we're supposed to finish and submit today on the group chat. So I just shared the link. So let's continue. What is ecology? Ecology is simply defined as the interrelationship between organisms and their external environment. So what's the relationship between where you're staying and your external environment, which includes the temperature of the area? In Nigeria, we have temperatures in the range of 30 something. If you go to temperate regions like in Europe, Russia, they have very low temperatures there. So it includes rainfall. How does rain fall around it? So our interrelationship as organisms with our environment, that is what ecology is. So we have what we call ecological factors affecting habitats. So what are those factors that affect where we live, which in turn affects how we adapt and how we stay in the place where we live? Number one is light. Light is very essential for photosynthesis, the end product of which is food used by plants and animals for survival. So light is a very essential factor, ecological factor that affects habitat. Number two, temperature. And JAMB is going to ask you which of the following is not an ecological factor affecting habitat. The temperature helps in sustaining life as metabolic processes work best at various optimal temperature, at very high temperature. So the temperature has to be moderate, so it affects a lot of your living. Now we'll talk about rainfall. Rainfall is the nature and distribution of vegetation. The rainfall is the amount of rain falling, and it depends on the nature and distribution of vegetation. And that is why rainforest zones are densely populated in terms of plants. So in rainforest zone, you will find out that rain is always falling there. And because there is constant rain, you have plenty plants there. So you see that rainfall affects the kinds of organisms that exist in that very area. Then we'll talk about pressure. Pressure is determined by the nature of depth and height of the altitude. Different aquatic organisms adapt to high pressure while others adjust to low pressure. So pressure is another very important factor that affects organisms in habitats. Then we'll talk about pH. We all know what pH is. So different organisms survive in different pH levels, be it in water or land. The ones that survive in acidic media, that's pH from below 7, may not survive in alkaline region. That's pH above 7, that's 8 to 13. Whereas 1 to 6 is acidic. 8 to 13 is due to their being adapted to such that affects organisms living in habitat and determine their distribution in that very habitat. So wind has effects on environment. Example, land. To resist these trees, grow strong roots. Aquatic organism gets readjusted. So wind is a very important factor also because the wind causes what we call wind drag on the sea and also erosion, soil erosion by taking out the topsoils. So wind is also another very important factor that affects habitat. So the ecological factors that affect habitat include light, temperature, rainfall, pressure, pH, and wind. Now let's look at abiotic factors. Abiotic factors comprise climatic and physiographic factors. So abiotic simply means factors that are not living. Living factors are biotic factors, whereas abiotic factors are non-living factors. So they include the climatic factors, which comprises of physical and chemical factors. The physical are made up of wind, temperature, humidity, light, intensity, and water current, which we've already mentioned. Then chemical factors, which include oxygen level, carbon dioxide level, mineral source level, water level, and nitrogen level. Whereas the physiographic factors comprises of the edaphic factor, which is actually soil factors. So soil factor, they comprise of soil, is the water content of the soil, the chemical and physical composition, the pH of the soil, the nutrients, and the profile as well as the texture of the soil. They will have topographic factors, the structure of the earth surface, the effect of rivers, hills, mountains, valleys. All these are topographic factors. So you have to take note of all these factors that affect the habitat of organisms. Now let's look at what population is. So population is the number of a particular species living in a habitat, number of a particular species. So you cannot be counting the population and you say population of both human beings and goats, or human beings and fowls. When you talk about population, you're considering a specific species. So if you're taking the population of human beings, you're talking about the population of human beings in Nigeria, strictly human beings. You want to check the population of animal, a particular species of animal, say goat or cow, you're just counting only cows. So take note, population considers number of a particular species living in a habitat, living in a specific geographical area. Now, in understanding population, you need to understand the concept of overcrowding. If the space occupied by individual plants or animals is such that when compared to their number, it is small, they are said to be overcrowded. So once the space is small and the number is large, we have what we call overcrowding. We need to know what overcrowding is. We need to know what population is, definition of population, what is overcrowding, because it goes a long way in making you understand what ecology is all about. So ecology, like I said, is the interrelationship between organisms and their environment. Population is the number of a particular species living in a habitat. So overcrowding is when the space is small. The space the organism is occupying is small compared to the number. That means the number is large. You have overcrowding. It's just like staying in the class, a very small class, and you have up to 50 students there. See that the number is high, but the square meter of the class is very small. There's going to be overcrowding. Everybody's going to be sweating. So the same thing, you can have overcrowded town. If you go to Onitsha or Lagos, very, very overcrowded. Some places there are very overcrowded because the space people are occupying very small compared to the number of people there. Then factors that may cause overcrowding. What are the factors? What are the things that cause overcrowding? Number one, the rate at which people give birth. If people are giving birth so much, it can cause overcrowding. Natality rate. If the natality rate is high. So take note, whenever you hear the word natality, it simply means birth rate, whereas mortality rate is death rate, the rate at which people are dying. So if the rate at which people give birth is high, you're going to have overcrowding. And if the rate at which people die is low, you also have overcrowding. Immigration is when people are coming from other parts of the country into that very place, or coming from outside the country into one country. Immigration is when they are going out. So once there is plenty immigration, that means people are coming. Just the way people go from South American countries into the US. So they are immigrating into US. So once people are coming in plenty into a country, you can have overcrowding. Social habits can also contribute to that. Inadequate means of dispersal. When people are always staying in one place, they don't want to disperse themselves. The town planning, the social habit, the town planning. You don't have a good town planner that can disperse people to plenty places. Everybody is concentrating on the city center. If you come to Abuja, we have Kubwa, we have Gogolada, we have Nyanya, we have other places in the outskirts of the town. So all those places should be developed to decongest the main town and cause lesser overcrowding. The lack of predators can also cause overcrowding in organisms. So if there are no predators feeding on these organisms, they can just get too many. But if you have predators feeding on the prey, you see that they will not grow so the population will not grow so big. Now, let's look at the biotic factors that affect population directly. So what are these biotic? And I say that there are two types of factors affecting population or the environment in an ecology. So these factors are normally biotic or abiotic. Biotic is when they are living, concerns living things. So it's connected to living, whereas abiotic, mostly the environment, okay? So biotic factors include food you eat. When you eat, the population increases. Diseases, if there are plenty diseases, you see the organisms will die and reduce the population. Mortality rate, when there is much death, the population is reducing. Natality rate, when there is much giving birth, it's increasing. Dispersal, if there is adequate dispersal, there will be no overcrowding. Parasites are plenty feeding on these organisms, population will be decreasing. Predators, if predators are feeding on prey, parasites can cause diseases, so population will reduce. Predators can also help in reducing population because they will be feeding on this organism. Now, competition also reduces the population because you have individual species within themselves trying to survive, thereby killing or making life difficult for their fellow organisms. So competition can greatly also reduce the population. Now, what are the abiotic factors, the non-living factors, or the factors that are not directly connected to the organism living? Now, talk about space. Inadequate space can lead to death due to disease. So space is very important. It can affect the population. The space is very small, causing overcrowding. The population will reduce. Heat. Microorganisms spread faster, and this might cause death also. So as causing a lot of sicknesses and cause death and reduce the population. Water, lack of water results in poor health and consequently can cause reduction in population or death. Now, light, autotrophs are able to produce food where light is inadequate, death results. So for plants that are autotrophs, they produce their food by themselves. They need light. So if there is no light, there could be death. And let's look at ecological succession. So succession is the progressive natural development of vegetation towards a climax during which one community is gradually replaced by the other, succeeding. So it's normally in vegetation. So you have the progressive natural development of vegetation towards climax. So once climax is reached, you have one community is gradually replaced by others. We have primary succession, which starts on sites like sand dunes, lava flows, which have not previously borne vegetation. That one is primary succession. So starting out, and you can see them on sites like sand dunes and lava flows. Producers like phytoplankton, Spirogyra, and blue green algae will be the first occupants as the primary succession, followed by zooplankton, as well as protozoans like amoeba paramecium, water lettuce, followed by animals such as water scorpion and possibly fish. So succession is simply replacement gradual in estuary, um, burning of farmland, abandoned farmland, and the rest of it. Okay, so let's quickly move on to ecosystem, climax, and community and overcrowding. Let's move into that. Let's see whether we can cover the whole of ecology today, so that by next class we'll look at genetics and variation. Okay, so I've shared the link for the assignment that we're supposed to do. Please make sure that you do the assignment, submit them this evening. Submit the assignment this evening. Okay, so let's look at ecosystem. So we can see behind the board that we have a whole lot of terms that we define. First of all, ecosystem, self-supporting unit that is made up of the biotic parts like plants and animals, and also the non-living parts, which are the abiotic parts like water, soil, temperature, and the rest. So that is what we call the ecosystem. It's a self-supporting unit. That means it can support itself, it can exist and maintain living. For the biotic factors, the plants and animals living in them in relation to their non-living environment, which is the non-living factors, the abiotic factors like water, soil, temperature, water current, and the rest of them. Then also we have what we call biomes, which are large natural terrestrial ecosystems, which you can easily see by looking at the tropical region. Whenever you talk about tropical region simply represents the place where the temperature is very high, like in Africa. Whereas the temperate regions are those places where the temperature is lower, like in Europe and North America. So you see those places when they go there, they have in the tropical region like in Nigeria, we just have two seasons. We have the wet season or the rainy season and the dry season, just two seasons. But when you get to the temperate region, you have four seasons. We have the autumn, we have the winter, we have the spring, and we have the summer. So those are the two major environments that we have. They are large natural terrestrial ecosystems. So it could be tropic, it could be temperate. Then we have what we call the climax community. This is the community that remains the same in its composition and size over a very long period of time. So JAMB is going to ask you, a community that remains the same in composition and size over a long period of time is known as what? Call it a climax community. So it is after a community must have reached climax that you start having what we call succession. Will not be replaced. So that community that has reached climax, it has grown from from a new community to old community and now maintain that oldness for a very long time or for some time, a long period of time, call it climax. It has climax, it's no longer growing more. And once a community climaxes, the next thing you have is what we call succession. Okay, so and succession is a step-by-step orderly way of replacing a climax community. And you remember in the last class we checked out the types of succession, the primary succession that occurs in a virgin land, in something like a lava flow or in a sand dune. So those are the very important aspects of this. Okay, so these are primary and secondary succession. Chika, my volume from this video I'm playing, is it okay? Like, can you hear it very well?
So it's cracking a bit and I can't really hear the sound.
Chama,
So it's cracking. I cannot hear it.
So I can hear
what
quite
about
clearly.
you? Can you hear?
I can hear quite clearly.
It's cracking.
No, it's not cracking from that network. It's not cracking.
Okay. Okay, from your own side, it's okay, Chama.
Okay, yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay, from your own side, the volume is okay. Okay, but I just summarized what we needed to see there. Let me see whether we can do something. Let's move down to genetics, science of genetics, okay, ecology, climate community, genetics. Let's look at genetics. Okay, so let's look at variation in organisms. Let's look at variation. Very important. Variation is so important because it comes out every year. Every year, questions come out every year. You're going to be asked which of the following is an example of morphological variation, if you know that. So let's look at variation since we still have much time. Okay. Now, population is a group of organisms of the same species which live in a specific area. I've explained this before that when you're talking about population, you're talking about organisms of the same species. If you're talking about human beings, you just concentrate on human beings. You count the number of human beings. That's population of human beings. If you're talking about insects, you're talking about a particular type of insect, you count them. So population is a group of organisms. It has to be group of the same organism of the same species living in a specific area, e.g. insects living together in an area form a population. Now, variation are differences between individuals of the same species. So when you talk about variation, you're talking about that same species that you're looking at now. They are not the same. They are differences. So you're talking about population of human beings that is made up of only Homo sapiens, only human beings. But all of them are not the same because you see some are black. The Negroes are black. Then you see the Mongols and the Caucasians. The Caucasians are staying in America and Europe. If you look at them, they are not looking the same as we blacks in Africa. The same, they are not also looking as the Chinese people or the Indians. So you see, even though we are all Homo sapiens, there is still variation in our skin color, in our height, in the way we are able to roll our tongue, in the way we are able to test. There's this chemical, I've forgotten the name, but I'll mention it later. In the way our fingerprints are organized. So there are still many differences in individuals of the same species. So those differences in individuals of the same species is what we call variation. And that is what we're going to be looking at today. So there are types of this variation. We have what we call morphological variation and physiological variation. So morphological variation, these are variations that deal with physical appearance of individuals. In human beings, they include height of the body. So you have variation in height. All of us are human beings, but we're not of the same height. Some people are tall, some people are short. So that is variation. It's morphological. It has to do with our physical appearance. The shapes of our body parts like our head, jaw, mouth, and nose. So you find out that white people normally have pointed nose. They have maybe more rounded faces than that of Africans. So you have these morphological variations. The lips of blacks are very thick and the rest. So sizes of various body parts like head, nose, and the shapes of the body parts like head, jaw, mouth, and nose. The shape of our nose is not the same as those of the white people. Color of body parts such as skin, like white people, their skin complexion is normally white, while ours is dark. Hair, Africans are always having dark hair. And the eyes as well. The fingerprints. So all these are known as morphological variation. And like I said, whenever you hear the word variation, it simply means differences. Differences in the same differences that are found in the same species of organism. So if it is human being, you're talking about differences that are in different human beings. So we're concentrating on human beings because we're looking at the population of human beings. Now in plants, examples of morphological variations in plants are, because the one we just mentioned are for animals, human beings in particular, but for plants, we have things like height of plant. We can have the same species of plant, but having different heights, sizes of leaves, fruits and roots, shapes of leaves and fruits, color of leaves, flowers and fruit, length of leaves. So in this type of variation, there is a range of ever-changing intermediate values of a given trait, as in length, size, height. It's also referred to as continuous variation. So you can also call morphological variation continuous variation. So like I said, there are two major types of variation. Variation, whenever you hear the word variation, it simply means differences in organisms of different species. So there is what we call morphological variation, and there is what we call physiological variation. So whenever it has to do with body parts, height, and sizes, we call it morphological. But whenever it has to do with the functioning of a part of a body, we call it physiological variation. So let's look at physiological variation. These are variations which relate to functioning. This one has to do with functioning, whereas the first one, morphological, has to do with the size and about the body parts. But the physiological has to do with the functioning of the body parts. Example is ability to roll your tongue. It's not everybody that can bring out the tongue. Like me, I cannot roll my tongue. But some people can just bring out their tongue and roll it. So that is variation. Those people are also human beings like me, but there are differences in the functioning of our body parts. Some people can even move their ear. They will be talking and be moving their ear. Like me, I cannot move my ear. So all those things are morphological. Functioning. How can you move your body? And all these things are, physiological, not morphological. So physiological, you talk about the functioning of the body. So moving of the ears without the head, that's another physiological variation. The way JAMB asks this question is that they're going to list like 4 of these physiological and tell you which of the following is a morphological. Then they will put one of these shapes of leaf. You should be able to pick out the one. So whenever it has to do with movement of body parts, testing of something, seeing, functioning of body parts, we call it physiological. But when it has to do with the size, they'll call it morphological. Okay. Now, closing one eye and leaving the other. Some people cannot close one eye and leave the other open. Like me, I can close one of my eye and leave the other one open. Now, testing the chemical substance called phenylthiocarbamide, PTC. That's the chemical I was trying to remember. Some people, when they put PTC in their mouth, they will say it's tasteless. Whereas some people put some PTC in their mouth and tell you that it has taste. So that is physiological variation. So testing the chemical substance called phenylthiocarbamide, PTC. Some people can test the chemical while others cannot. Then also variation in blood group. We are all human beings, but we don't have the same blood group. Some people have A, some people have B, some people AB, some people O. Then we have each person belongs to any of these groups. Okay. So now, what are the applications of variation? Why are we learning variation in population, variation in human beings? Why are we learning it? Because it can be applied in crime detection. So you can apply, what's it called? You can apply variation in crime detection. And in this case, we use the fingerprint. So if you have a case, let's say a criminal case, and you have criminals in that area that you're suspecting, or maybe something like a rape case, you have people, serial rapists in that area, and somebody came to the house and raped somebody in the night, and nobody saw the face. But in the process, the person might leave his fingerprint around that vicinity. So what the detectives do is that when they come, they will condone the whole area so that people will not enter. Then they will take out samples and check out fingerprints and other things. So when they now go and arrest those serial rapists that are around, people that have records of similar crime, they can now match the fingerprints and be able to identify the people that did the crime. If you're watching all these detective films in these American detective films, you're going to see some of this science being used in crime detection. So fingerprints are useful in crime detection in that no 2 persons have the same fingerprints. No 2 people have the same fingerprint. If a gun or other material are used in committing a crime, the police may check for fingerprints on the guns or materials found at the scene of the crime. If found, such fingerprints are compared with those of potential suspects and past criminals. Any individual whose fingerprints matches the fingerprint on the gun or any other material in the scene of the crime may be taken in as an accused person. So that's how crime detection is done, using fingerprint, which is a fundamental morphological variation. Okay, other morphological features such as height, skin complexion, color of hair, color of eyes, and shape of ears may be used by the police to mount a search for the suspected criminal. Types of fingerprint. There are 4 types of fingerprint. We have the wool, the loop, the arc, and the double wall. So the four major types of fingerprints are the wall, the loop, the arc, and the double wall. So the loop, the arc, and the double wall. Now, DNA fingerprints. DNA fingerprints are used in developed countries to detect crime. The body cells left at the scene of the crime are collected and their DNA patterns are analyzed. These are then compared with those of the suspects. These are useful in identifying rapists. Like I explained before, you can easily use this to do such identification. Now, blood transfusion is also very important application of variation. Like I said, different people have different blood group. When somebody is sick and needs blood, you don't go and carry the blood, or if the person is having another group, it's always good you give the person the same group, or you give the person a universal group. So don't just do blood transfusion like that. So you need to know the blood group of these individuals. So blood transfusion, blood groups are characterized by certain proteins in the blood. These are antigens in the red blood cells and antibodies in the plasma. So antigens in the red blood cells and antibodies in the plasma. An antigen is a substance that can induce the formation of an antibody. Okay, so an antigen is a substance that can induce the formation of antibody. So antigens in the red blood cells and antibodies in the plasma. So antigens enables the production of antibodies. Now, there are four blood groups in man. You have the A, group A, the group B, the group AB, and the group O. These are the ABO blood groups. The table, I'm not going to be looking at any table. Now, variation, a skin color, and some other physical characters being used to classify human race into four groups. Okay, you can also use this variation to classify into the Negroes, which are the black people, the Caucasians, which are the light-skinned Europeans and white Americans, and the Mongoloids, which are the Chinese and Japan. These are Mongoloid. This is M. So take note. Okay, this is where we're going to be stopping. Please make sure you make sure you do the assignment that I just gave. I've shared them on the group already. Please do and submit them immediately. Don't waste time so that we can get on other things. We still have plenty past questions to work on. So immediately after this, we are going to go into 2020 past questions. Finish 2020, we'll look at 2018, then 2017, 2016. Are you trying to say something? Okay. Okay, thank you. See you when I see you. God bless you.